And now for something completely different.
Hi, my name is Annie Grossman, and I'm a dog trainer. This podcast is brought to you by School for the Dogs, a Manhattan-based facility I own and operate along with some of the city's finest dog trainers. During this podcast, we'll be answering your questions, geeking out on animal behavior, discussing pet trends, and interviewing industry experts. Welcome to School for the Dogs podcast. So I am here with Adam Davis. Adam, why don't you introduce yourself with your official School for the Dogs title?
Hi, Annie. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
My name is Adam Davis, and I am the Off-Leash manager at the School for the Dogs.
And what does that mean?
So pretty much we have these really cool services. It's called our off-leash services, right? Pretty much, it sounds exactly how it sounds. You get to come into the school and allow your dog to be off-leash in a highly controlled and constructive kind of way. Our services are great for people.
And to be clear, the owners are there.
Yes, yeah, owners are there. You're there with your dog. You're talking to other parents. You're talking to the trainer that's there. We definitely want people to be involved with their dog, especially when it's in an off-leash kind of setting.
And we have two different kinds of
Yes.
services.
We do. Yeah, we have the puppy ones, which are, you come in, it's puppy playtime. You get to learn a little bit about how dogs communicate to one another, when to give breaks. Really, really valuable. I would suggest this to anyone that has a puppy. It's so valuable to have our puppies socialize in a highly controlled manner. So that's the puppy side. That's the cool. That's the baby side, right? And then we have schoolyard, which is a little bit of a step up. It's for dogs that are 20 weeks and older. Very much a similar kind of structure, but a little bit more laid back, I would say. So schoolyard is really great for dogs that want to be social, that can communicate well, that can take communication well, and it's for a great space for them to be able to come and socialize in a highly controlled manner. This is for adult dogs. Well, not really adult, but you very non-puppies.
Well, some of them are adults. We have some.
Oh yeah.
I think part of the reason it's maybe like less controlled, as you say, is because it's puppy playtime. Often it's someone's first time there with their dog, whereas schoolyard, we have people who come, I don't know, almost every day of the week for years.
So yes.
They don't need as much instruction. And so why don't you talk about like the process of getting into schoolyard? Puppy playtime, of course, is open to who've had at least their first round of shots.
Yeah, definitely. So, schoolyard, there is a little bit of an evaluation process, right? I mean, we don't just allow every single dog that we've seen to be able to come to schoolyard, right? And we have to make sure that it's a good fit for not only, their dog, but for every attendee that's there. So there is a little bit of evaluation process. So we do test out, can your dog disengage from another dog? How do they greet another dog? Do they greet another dog, full jumping on top, or maybe being a little intense, or maybe do they run away a little bit when other dogs greet them? There's a lot of signals that our dogs give us that through just really experience and knowing really what to look for, you can kind of gauge whether a greeting is appropriate or not, right? So we love to, that's definitely part of the criterion, being able to greet, being able to disengage. We don't really look for fine-tune behaviors or perfect behaviors, right? No one's perfect. No dog's perfect. But we really want to see is a dog that is excited to be there, that actually wants to play and can follow some light instructions, especially for their first time.
Right. Although,
Yeah.
interestingly, when we named it Schoolyard, part of the reason we called it Schoolyard rather than like open play or the like was because we wanted it to be a place where dogs could be off leash even if they didn't want to play. Like
Sure.
they
Oh,
could
that
just
too,
kind
of
of like
course.
exist, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we definitely have those dogs. I could name a few that would just rather people watch, but the dog watch edition. You know, yeah, and it's great for those dogs to be able to socialize and instead of going to a dog park, right? It's usually those dogs that are bullied a little bit, where they may feel a little timid or a little shy, and you have some pesky young dogs at the dog park just not really listening and not catching those signals and
well,
disengaging.
it's
Right?
also cool because it's like the owners are learning all the time too, of course,
Sure.
and they can often, um, or I don't know, I
Step
think
in.
they could step in, but I also think like we work with people who understand that their dogs don't have to be like jumping around and touching the whole time in order to be getting something out of the experience.
Oh,
Like,
exactly.
even if the dog is just like kind of hanging out and watching in the corner, there's still a value there of the dog
Oh, definitely.
for the dog.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really exciting. Love doing it. Yeah, I started working at school for the dogs about more than a year. I want to say a year and 3 months now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
November. Yeah,
Um,
November 5th, 2019.
so why don't you tell us about about your preschool for the dogs, your preschool for the dogs life,
Yeah, sure.
the G-rated version.
So yeah, I mean, there is definitely a little bit of an background in just working with dogs, right?
You
So
got started kind of early, actually.
very, yeah, a little early on. So my first dog, well, not really, it was kind of like my second dog, but his name was Dino, and he was a really lovely dog.
You're
Great with.
you're from
Mhm.
Jersey, right?
Oh no, I'm from the Bronx
Oh,
in
yeah.
Riverdale. Oh yeah, so I grew up in Riverdale, born in Oakland, California. Shout out to all the West Side people tuning in. Yeah, I was born in Oakland. I have all of my family over there, but my dad and mom were singing a lot, and so we moved
Oh, wow.
around a little bit.
What
Yeah.
kind of singers?
So my dad was an opera singer. My mom was actually a professional dancer. So that's how they kind of met. Yeah. So when I was born, we moved around a lot. Like I lived in Germany for a year, but we settled in Washington Heights for a year. We lived like right next to the cloisters, which was absolutely beautiful. Feel totally blessed to have those kind of memories still present. And then then we moved to Riverdale for like first grade. So I was there for a good 20 definitely 20 years of my life.
Mhm.
So the dog that I grew up with, Dino, really, really lovely dog, really big blocky head. We found him actually tied up down the block from me to a fence with a sign that says, please give me a good home.
Aw.
And so we already had a dog at the time. We had a Karen Terrier named Frank. Really, really spunky dog. Absolutely great first experience for a dog. And, we saw Dino tied up to a fence. One of my would-be mentors at the time, he had his own kind of dog walking service, and he was also doing training. He found Dino, and he was taking care of him. And once my dad got wind that an am staff, a pretty young am staff, I want to say like maybe like about like 9 months, like he was pretty big size already. George had him, and my dad's like, "Yep, we'll take him," without question. We just brought him in. Really, really lovely dog. You can put him in a room full of babies, and he'll nurse them and take care of them. He was just that kind of dog. Now, however, he had some pretty extreme behavioral issues and concerns. So Dino was highly aggressive towards very specific particular dog. You would say that he was a like I now that I have a little bit more knowledge of dog behavior, I wouldn't necessarily say he was a status seeking dog, but he had this hate in him for very specific dogs. And it wasn't like these behaviors kind of sparked out of nowhere. There was definitely a little bit of a slow progression. And of course, our family not noticing these things at the time, it quickly kind of spiraled into, oh my gosh, we need help. right? There was a moment, and this will always stay with me. So when I was younger, my dad was walking both Dino and Frank at the same time. So we lived on the top floor in the building I used to live in Riverdale. And on our floor, there were no other dogs living on that floor, right? So you can safely assume that in the elevator, when the elevator came up, there shouldn't be any dogs in the elevator, right? So, and I remember this. So I remember this from my bedroom. I remember this. This was out in the hallway, like, completely out of the thresholds and the confines of our apartment. And elevator door opened up, and Dad just kind of haphazardly walked in, and sure enough, Rex was there. And Rex was this long-haired black dachshund, which for some reason Dino just hated. Absolutely hated. He would bark, he would snarl, and we always knew if he ever got a hold of him, it would be really bad. So in this instance, he got a hold of Rex, and in less than a couple of seconds, broke 2 ribs, punctured a lung, and he had to go to the emergency room.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was definitely one of those, oh my gosh, and Dino was already having issues at this point. Like, he was already getting way too over threshold on walks. He would snarl and bark. We couldn't get his attention. We would have to really disengage, go a couple of blocks away if we ever saw a specific dog on walks. And at dog parks, very typical fence fighting, barrier frustration, redirected on my dad once. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot. So we grew up with that kind of training background. So my first mentor, my would-be mentor, was helping us out, and I was also working for him as well. I was also assisting him with his doggy daycare.
You must have been a kid at this point, though. No?
Yeah, I started working with him probably 15, 16, just in summers or here and there whenever he really needed me. I was really just like a space saver. So I would sit in the car. I would, he would instruct me if any dog walked by or any person got too close with the car, treat these specific dogs. So I was already kind of being primed from counter conditioning, desensitization. I just kind of didn't know it at the time, right? I was 15, 16. And then once I turned 18, really wanted to dive a little bit deeper into just working with dogs, because I really enjoyed working with him. It was a really rewarding job. I got to be outside with 20 to 30 dogs a day, all have different personalities. Of course, you all grow to love them. But it was definitely, as I continued to work, right, I started to get this really nice hands-on experience that really just catapulted my interest into just dog behavior.
So how did he help you with Dino?
So Dino, yeah, so George helped us out just doing a lot of one-on-one sessions. We started off, he, just for the time, I'm looking back into just some of the methods that we use, especially with Dino, because we had to carry around Citronella Spray with him, and he within a couple of times he just got desensitized to it. It didn't really do anything to him.
Well, how does that work? You would spray him
So the Citronella Spray is kind of a last, one of the last ditch safety efforts to kind of get your dog to either stop fighting, or maybe a dog has latched onto another dog, or just trying to get your dog to disengage for something. It's kind of one of the last ditch efforts. So Citronella Spray is, a really highly concentrated spray that you spray in the dog's face and nose, and it's supposed to really disorient them. It does not feel very good. It's supposed to get your dog to stop whatever they're doing in a highly kind of safety conscious kind of situation, right? You want to make sure everyone is safe. You want to make sure all the dogs are safe. So we would spray this in Dino's face when he would react like that, because a 70-pound Amstaff, when he's going out for some serious blood, if he ever got away from us and charged at whichever dog he was reacting, it would have been very bad. It would have been absolutely horrible. So we started doing that. Those were the suggestions that was made to us, and he just got desensitized to it. And mind you, we were still very much amateurs at this, and we didn't, we were just really at that point just get Dino away from that dog that he's either reacting to. Oftentimes it was in the lobby, right? You get out of the elevator, into the lobby, and of course, boom, there's a dog there. So there's not a lot of like treating you could do in that moment, right? You just get Dino away, get him to a manageable aroused state, get him just calm down just a little bit, and then work within that distance. So we did do a lot of like behavioral adjustment therapy, or BAT, as behavioral adjustment training, or BAT as people may know it. But it was definitely a challenge, just a constant challenge. He did have friends, which was the amazing part. He did have friends where there was this one dog friend that would literally just hump his face, and he would not care whatsoever. He was like, "Yep, this is fine." And of course, we would get them off of each other and stuff. But he had success, which was awesome. He had success. He had good friends. He was able to play with these other dogs. But man, if these specific, let's say, golden retrievers walked by the park, like, everyone would have to get their dog, or else Dino would be redirecting on everyone. Yeah. And even in those moments, and we were always fascinated by this, because even in those highly aroused state of, let's say, the fence fighting for the golden retrievers, we knew the parent too. The parent was like not willing to just go ahead and cross the street. Like, it's mind blowing. That's a whole other topic we could talk about. But yeah, she would walk by, right? Dino would just react, and whichever dog would then come over, also very stimulated, because Dino was barking and lunging and snarling. He would redirect on them, and even in those highly aroused state, Dino wouldn't make a single scratch on these dogs. So he still had bite inhibition. He would still maintain some level of control in those moments, instead of just going and doing damage to the next dog that he sees. But yeah, it was definitely a long process. George helped us out with really a lot of counter conditioning, a lot of engage and disengage work. But it was really like, after a certain point, it was all management. Really making sure Dino just doesn't really have that opportunity to do that. And I even remember a few moments where, maybe a new dog would come into the dog park, and Dino would be sitting politely, letting the dog come in. And then when my dad would release Dino, all of a sudden you just charge at him, pin him. There'd be a little scuffle, and then we would separate them. Of course, this dog didn't have any puncture marks on him or anything like that. He was, and that's why I guess the more I think about it, the more there is definitely an aspect of that deference kind of hierarchy structure that dogs can definitely have, especially in those kind of social settings.
So was that kind of your first introduction to dog training then?
Oh, like behavior? Oh yeah, definitely. Because with Frank, like we never really did that with him. He was, he was a small little Karen Terrier. Of course, we would teach him sit and stuff, but we were just going off of my parents' experience, early on. But it wasn't until we had Dino, we're like, okay, we actually have to dive into how dogs learn and the methods that we can do to help them just feel a little better, or do something else that's going to be just as rewarding.
And did it make sense to you right away, or did you feel like there needs to be a way to fix this dog rather than just management techniques? Yeah,
I mean, I think just at the time of just the knowledge that we had, there really wasn't. Well, I don't know. I was very young, so like a lot of this stuff can be a little cloudy, just in terms of our motivation for doing it. Because I'm sure there are times where my family could kind of like lacked that, or just kind of really didn't follow through with some of the training. And then of course me, 15-year-old, just being absolutely terrified. I was like, just walking my dog. I'm like, I'm just gonna cross the street, or like getting in the elevator. There wasn't that in-depth knowledge of behavior that would have probably benefited us a little bit more. And who knows? Maybe my parents did get that information, and I'm just kind of not remembering it.
Were you at the same time watching like The Dog Whisperer and thinking like,
oh no,
this is different than what George is telling us?
No, definitely not. I mean, I was brought up in the positive reinforcement world. Okay. I mean, yeah, my mentor George, he has a really interesting story too. His first dog was resource guarding and snapping at him. So George really had to dive into training. He read all of the books that were kind of pushed to the side during that time, right? There was still very much a sense of that, balance training or using kind of other forceful techniques with their dog, very old school kind of methodologies and methodologies. And he was the one that really brought in a lot of these kind of techniques to especially to us. Well, like we had like no idea. We wouldn't do any like forceful or like any kind of mean kind of training with our dogs. We knew to use treats and all that kind of stuff, but he was really the one that, especially for us, that brought positive reinforcement training into light. So I was like pretty much raised on that.
So your first job really was working with him doing training then?
Mm-hmm. Kind of, yeah. I mean, so we would be managing our doggy play group. So some of the things that we would do, we would do a lot of weights. We would do a lot of recalls. We would and honestly, we would do timeouts as well. We would set up a tether station. So when dogs were, maybe a little pushy or a little rude to one another, we would use timeouts. Yeah, it was definitely a great hands-on experience. I was able to really start to build like my timing, when I reward, what kind of reinforcers do I use.
And so that was a business that was like that business was picking up dogs and bringing them to the park, right?
Correct. Yeah, we had a van, and we would gut out the back. We would put down a rug. We would have one crate in the back. We would have a morning and an afternoon play group. So we would mostly start, I say about like 8 or 9. Go pick up the early morning dogs. Usually it could span anywhere per dog run. It could span anywhere between 10 to 15 dogs maybe at a time, right? We always wanted to make sure everything was nice and safe. And we would take them to the park, let them run for an hour, put them back in the car, pick up, drop off more dogs, and then have the afternoon run. And then after that, right, we would drop them off, and then we would end our day.
So you really have like a long background in working with dogs off leash.
Oh yes, oh yeah, I have. That is my specialty. That is definitely my specialty. Oh yeah, definitely. I've been, one can say I've been groomed to do this.
Haha. I think one thing that's interesting about that is that it's not how most people think about dog training. Most people picture, I'm guessing, most people picture dog training as something that happens. A trainer comes to your home, or you go to a facility, a basement somewhere, and everybody's lined up with a dog leash and a trainer standing in the front of the room. But the idea that training is happening while dogs can be off leash and in some cases with their owners not present, that's what you were doing before at least.
Oh yeah.
Might be an unusual thing.
Sure.
But they certainly are still learning, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely an ongoing process. I always like to think training really never stops for dogs, and it's always in a lot of different capacities, even when the parent isn't there. Like what is the dog's motivator in any kind of situation? What are they getting out of it? Is it fun? Is it not? Right? And in these kind of situations, we're really practicing impulse control and proper manners, making sure everyone's having fun and being safe. Even when their parents aren't there, which is great. Which is amazing.
What kind of reactions do you tend to get from people who come to the first time to playtime or schoolyard? Do you feel like you witness aha moments?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I really like the wide spectrum of people that come in, especially for playtimes. I get a lot of people that have had experience with puppies, or haven't had experience with just dogs in general, and it's really great to be able to hear those, oh my gosh, this is so great. I had one of those moments the other day where this dog Newton, who has just kind of been struggling with finding his confidence and feeling comfortable around being around other dogs. It's just been a really slow progression. And yesterday we had a little bit of like a one-on-one playtime with this dog that I surefire knew that he was going to play with, and they were playing for 30 minutes straight, and it was absolutely amazing. It was great. It was definitely one of those, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
You're like a matchmaker.
Yeah, right. And that's what I always tell people. A lot of times we get like a really shy or timid puppy, and play doesn't always happen at puppy playtime, and that's the important thing. That's what people really need to understand about socialization, is that not all they looking at each other is almost good enough. Just the fact that they're in the same room together, being able to look at each other and engage in one way or another is great for them.
Yeah, which is I of course I think is so important too. But there are occasionally people who come in and I think are disappointed that it's not what they expected. It's not a room.
Oh sure, yeah, no, we definitely have those
the whole the time. But at least I try to explain that.
Oh yes,
we have to keep things small and controlled, and unfortunately sometimes that means it's maybe not the perfect fit for every single dog there, but that we don't see playtime as like a one-off thing. Like it should be something that is
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, socialization doesn't just stop after one time,
So you're doing private sessions too now, right?
Yes, I'm doing private sessions. I started taking on puppy clients probably when we opened back up in like after COVID. Yeah, late summer. I want to say like July, August. I started taking on some privates here and there, and those have been really, really great.
Tell me about the experience of starting to do private sessions, or was it?
So yeah, I mean, obviously, your adrenal glands are going to be acting up, right? That's definitely going to be happen. It's a very, very normal. It just means you're alive, right? I don't want it. It's if anyone says they're not nervous or they don't have a little bit of angst to them, like I don't believe them one bit. Absolutely not. But
I remember starting it when I started out.
Sure.
When I mean. Eventually I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this on autopilot, which is actually kind of a reason for me to like not do it so much anymore, because I felt like people don't deserve like Annie on autopilot. But I know in the beginning I felt like I know so much and I know I can help these people, but like I don't know how to communicate these things in a way that I feel comfortable doing, and it felt like this like bottleneck feeling.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's so interesting because you can have all of the knowledge and kind of the background, but the other part to these sessions is one, making sure obviously you're communicating that to everything to the client in a way that makes sense, and the way that's kind of specific towards them, and really almost like one of the things that I've kind of learned, especially through School for the Dogs, is just to be a little bit more sensitive with puppy clients, and just like choosing different vernacular here and there, and just making sure that they're heard is very, very important, right? And I always tell people that like part of my job is working. 70% of my job is working with people. 30% of it is the dogs. The dog part is easy. The human part to it, that's the challenge. Yeah.
Have you read that book? There's a great book, The Human Half of Dog Training.
So I actually got that from Kate. So I've been meaning to read it.
It's definitely. I haven't looked at it in a while, but when I did read it, I got a lot out of it. But I think my takeaways from years working with dogs, especially puppies and clients, was like you said, being an empathetic listener.
Yep. Definitely.
Helping people understand that their problems are not necessarily unique, but also real, and not spewing anything that could come off as judgment before sort of laying down a sciencey background. I remember early on I said I must have said something about like I think it was like in a puppy playtime I was running or something. I said something about, like what kind of relationship do you want to have with your dog? Like, do you want to have a relationship that's about like you yelling at your dog and yanking your dog around? Or
how did the person react to that?
Well, I guess they ended up like leaving a Yelp review about how judgmental and everything I was.
Oh man.
I mean, in the moment, I wasn't judging them. I was just sort of talking out loud. But I guess they felt like, well, I do that stuff with my dog, and and I felt bad about it because I felt like, it's true. Like you can't say these things without assuming that people are starting at zero. I mean, when I think about the kinds of things I did with my old dog Amos when he was a puppy before I knew anything, like I probably would have felt judged too if somebody had come in. But I think one thing about our approach that I feel works is starting, or if not starting, at least not shying away from talking about like the science behind stuff, because like it's hard to argue with it, and it's also not something that most people I think have ever thought about. And when you can see that these are not just ideas and opinions, but that there's actual science behind it, I think it takes some of the takes away some of the bad feelings one might have about having done things that were not rooted in science simply because like you didn't know. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's less more of like, oh, this is the moral compass that you should be following and you're horrible for not following it, which I feel like, people definitely kind of get to that assumption when they hear stuff like this because they feel bad. But, if you're, really just being objective, and like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to just stop what I'm doing with my dog, and just understand that this is just kind of either a method or methodology that you've believed in the past, and we need to just now move forward, just a better training for our puppies, and just kind of accepting that. But I definitely hear what you're saying in terms of bringing out the science, just presenting it to them and letting them make their interpretations after that. I mean, you can't really make interpretations out of anything scientific or any data or any research. But I think that's what takes the personal side out of it.
And like, you've probably heard me go off on this before, but like I get frustrated about like the word positive because I feel like it gets misused so much of the time as like we're like nice, happy stars and flowers and rainbows, like trainers who are always positive, where it's like, no, it's not positive. Like we're nice all the time. It's positive.
Oh yeah.
Like it's positive in like the form of addition. Like we're trying to add something to encourage behavior. And like, it's not like a moral, or ethical stance, even though, I mean, I think it is moral and ethical.
Oh yeah. But it's definitely very scientific, and I mean, there's, fear-free and all that kind of stuff, which is definitely way more of the moral compass than, just really making sure that we're not forcing our dogs to do anything or we're not instilling any kind of fear whatsoever. And, and with all of that other stuff, with, even positive punishment or negative reinforcement, it can definitely, there could definitely be that aspects of fear.
Tell me about your dog.
Oh, my dog. Yes. So my dog is the love of my life. Her name is Sonic, and she is a 40-pound pit mix. I'm not sure what she's mixed with. I've been dying to get a DNA panel on her because she has this kind of weird body, and I've been looking up different breeds. I'm like, oh, that looks like her face. That looks like her body, because she has this not really pitty body, but she definitely has the face of a pit. She has like webbed toes, like she has really long fingers, which are really weird. But she is super cute. She's like the perfect size. Like when you think of like the reason why I probably wouldn't get a huge amp staff is just because, you know, I live in the city, and just the fact that maybe I would have to move would be a huge deterrence, just because big dog, right? And not a lot of apartments are going to want a big dog, regardless of the breed. But Sonic is literally the perfect size. I can say, oh yeah, she's 30 pounds, and people be like, oh, okay, cool.
Where'd you get her from?
So I got her from Westchester Humane Society. They were really, really lovely. I knew the director of training at the time. And during my interest in just being like, you know what, I want to be a dog trainer, because I was going to school at nights to be a canine cop. I was going to John Jay.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So I definitely, you know, even at the time, I definitely still wanted to work with animals, but I wanted the health benefits, the steady paycheck, all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah, this will be fine, right? And after learning about it and then paying out of pocket, because I wasn't getting financial aid at the time, I was like, you know what, screw this. I'd rather place my money towards going to seminars and doing something else with dogs that I've already been kind of teetering on that. So, the director of training, so Bobby, she suggested, you know what, I mean, if you want to be a dog trainer, you have to get a dog, because at the time I just didn't have one. This was a couple years after Dino's passing, so I was, you know, kind of flirting with getting a dog for a little bit. And the funny thing is, so my girlfriend at the time, she was looking up dogs on their website, and as soon as she heard that I was kind of interested, she's like, oh my gosh, great, right? So she pulled up this dog. Her name was Polly, and she looked kind of like a jackal. She didn't look too, you know, she didn't look as attractive as I wanted her to look attractive. You know, that may sound really vain and shallow, but you know, I wanted a dog that's, you know, that's going to be as soon as
looking as you know.
There you go. And I wanted, as soon as I saw him, be like, oh my gosh, well, it's a beautiful dog, right? I definitely wanted something like that. Wanted there to be that little level of attraction. So, but as soon as I went to the shelter, I was like, let's go ahead and see Polly, because Bobby actually suggested Polly to me. And I saw her coat looked a lot better. She put on some weight. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, this dog is so beautiful. And so I went up to her. I went up to her little crate, and of course she's jumping up. She's like whining. So she was. They thought she was a puppy when she first came in because of how small she was, but she had all of her adult teeth. So she was mostly around maybe like they speculated a year to 2 year. That's kind of how old she was, And yeah, so she was so comparing her pictures, right? She looked a lot better. So I got her inside of their little like room that they had, their little training room. And you know, Bobby already told everyone that I was coming. They're like, just put her in the room with Adam. It's like, our trainer's coming. And they threw a couple of toys for her. She did this really just sporadic kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna jump on the toy and act like a velociraptor. It was super cute. And you know, as soon as I got down on the ground, she crawled into my lap, and I'm like, yep, that's it. Like you're coming home with me. I saw one other dog, and I'm like, nope. I immediately signed the papers. Like I knew that was that. Yeah, it was really great. So I got her in 2016. I've had her. Yeah, I've had her since then.
And do you do training with her, or have you?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I've done a little bit of she's really good at some scent work, and so I do a lot of stuff like around the house. So I'll put her in my room, and I'll place like her food, especially all around the apartment and really random places. You know, of course, I'll say, go find it. And she takes, she puts her nose down for a good, 20 to 30 minutes. She absolutely loves doing that. Yeah, she knows a good amount of tricks. She has really great impulse control behaviors. She'll when we do like leave it and stuff like that, she'll completely like turn her head away from the treat while still drooling and salivating just because I have something in my hand. Yeah, she's a really spunky dog. She loves to cuddle. She is a very like tactile kind of dog. She wants to be on top of you. She wants to be touching you. She likes the warmth of a human body. Yeah. Oh yeah. One of her little quirky kind of traits is that when she gets a little excited and a little aroused, she starts to do these like donkey noises. So she'll make like and it's after a while it's cute for a bit, but if you've lived with her for a good 4 or 5 years, it was like, all right, this is a little annoying. But yeah, she's an absolute great dog. She can be a little socially inept sometimes, and I think that could just be from her background, which I have no clue about, right? Because she's a rescue. Yeah, she has her quirks. She gets a little over aroused sometimes, and sometimes she could be a little weird with people. If I'm being frank, if I'm being candid,
she's what does weird with people look like?
So yeah, absolutely. So weird with people, what this will look like. So she'll solicit attention. She'll go up to a person, and she'll come up and smell them. Have really nice loose body, like I could just tell the way she's standing is nice and relaxed. She'll go up to the person, smell them, and then as soon as the person pets, she will lunge towards their face or lunge towards their immediate center of mass. And she's never made any kind of contact. It's always get away from me. I don't like being pet like this, and I don't like you handling me like this. And oftentimes it can look a lot different too. Sometimes she'll maybe jump up, and this is partly my fault, to be honest, because I've allowed her to jump when I first got her, because I just wanted her to greet me at the door, and of course now I'm reaping the consequences of that, because when she'll jump up, when dogs just naturally jump up, right, they work themselves up a little bit more, right? They're utilizing their muscles, they're pushing themselves up. It's just naturally they get a little bit more aroused and stimulated. So when Sonic would jump up on someone and this person would be petting her, she would then start to growl, get really stiff. Her pupils will dilate, her ears will be pinned back just a little bit, and then she'll make some kind of either vocalization or some kind of snap. Never made any contact on anyone, and usually what I do with people, especially when they first greet her, one, they're not allowed to pet her for a little bit, right? They have to play hard to get. They have to reward her, and just to establish that association of, hey, I'm fine. I'm not going to hurt you. I mean you no harm, right? I want her to start to like people. But it's definitely been a journey for me with her, because I wanted to also think that, like, I wouldn't say I was delusional a while ago, but like I grew up with Dino, right? I grew up with a dog that just absolutely loved people. You could do whatever you wanted to him, and he was totally fine. Kids, old people, like everyone, didn't matter. As long as you were a human, you were great. But with Sonic, it could be a little different. And I think I saw the progression of Sonic's behavior throughout the years without any kind of intervention from me, because I feel like I was still young in my career, so I wasn't really sure how to handle it, and I just allowed her to, one, feel uncomfortable, because I can safely assume that even though she's soliciting attention, she definitely gets to that point of, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable, I don't like this, how do I get this person away from me as quickly as possible? And throughout the years, probably no one has really listened to her until she's exhibited those behaviors. And it was my fault for not acknowledging those and to seek out some kind of help with it. Like I just kind of wanted to think that that wasn't happening in a way. And I think that's kind of, what I'm dealing with now, especially with just, she's doing it a lot more, pretty consistently with almost every person that she meets.
Maybe you need to work with a trainer.
Yeah, right. Maybe I need to reach out to a trainer. But yeah, usually like, as long as she knows you, you're in the clear, you're great. But new people, oh yeah, she can get real stiff if they go over her head, if they stare at her a little bit. Oh yeah, she has her triggers. I feel like I've gotten a good, accurate picture of what I really need to do for her. When it comes to at least when it comes to people handling her.
You need to train people also to
yeah.
with her.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the trouble too. Like that's what I've been practicing on recently. It's really being vocal of no petting her, and being really strict about that, and being vocal about it, because I kind of was still in that, like a while ago. So I kind of still in that place. I'm like, oh my gosh, I this interaction is making me uncomfortable. Please don't snap. Please don't snap. And now now I have very strict rules. If it's a new person that's, like, let's say, coming over, I'm taking her somewhere, I'm always bringing treats, high value treats. I'm always allowing her to only smell and greet for a few seconds. Then I'll disengage her, do a sit, do some relaxation work, right? And I don't think I've seen any real progression, especially with new people. But with the people that she already knows, they already kind of know how to handle her. So I've kind of gotten my friend group and my family to really be on board with how to handle her. So this way I'm at least controlling a little bit of the mishandling of her, just from a rehearsal basis, right? I don't want her kind of rehearsing this behavior, feel like she has to exhibit these behaviors. So nowadays, like, I just had a few people over, all friends, and she was perfect with them, absolutely perfect with them, which was amazing, made me happy.
Here's a question. So, probably the most famous trainer of our time is the dog whisperer, and he is a man. And yet, if you go to conferences, there are very few dog training conferences. There's usually very few men there. You work at School for the Dogs, which is owned by two women, and I think, what do we have? Something, what, like six? How many trainers do we have? 6 trainers. Majority are women. Majority of people on our staff are women.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think that? Why do you think? I guess two-part question. Why do you think it's such a female-oriented field, and what is that like for you? Or maybe it doesn't matter at all. I don't
know. No, I know. I think that's an excellent question. Not a lot of people know that in our world and in our industry, it is definitely female dominated, which I think is awesome. I think it's amazing, and I think the proof is in the pudding when it comes to the success of especially like what we do, and essentially with our mythologies. I think it's really easy for a guy, let's say just a male, to resort to training with pain because I have to make my dog do something. I have to make them do this, right? I definitely feel like it's it's very easy for men to get there than for women to get there. I feel like women are just more nurturing, just like naturally alone. They're a lot more nurturing. I feel like they're a lot more empathetic, and I feel like the temptation for, or maybe not even the temptation, but just the wanting to take teaching from an approach of no pain, no fear whatsoever. I feel like I feel like that's I wouldn't say makes more. I don't know. I'm trying to find the words for that, without potentially sounding offensive. But you get my gist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But I think it's great. Like some of the guys that I've met are really great trainers. They don't train with any pain, and of course I've seen a lot more males using balance training, or losing some force and coercion, or some dominance theory training, which of course has been debunked. It's and who knows, I think it could also be an upbringing thing too, but I don't think that has any real correlation.
I find myself as your boss feeling. I mean, not just you, but all the men on our staff, which is not that many, but I feel myself being like protective of you guys in a way that's like maybe unexpected, and certainly. I mean, I don't think gender is the first thing that we consider about anyone we hire.
Oh, sure.
But I feel like I don't know. Like one time someone on staff like referred to you as like a dude, and I felt like, and
I
I was like, both Kate and I were like, that's,
like, come on now. We're being,
I
being
mean, I
a
guess
little
there are worse
PC
things
here.
than being called a dude, but like, I don't know, if someone referred to a woman on staff as a chick, it might be,
Yeah, it's like, oh,
also.
that's such a chick thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But it's like
Hmm.
we live in this moment of where we're all like hypersensitive to this stuff. So I
Sure,
find
sure.
myself in the unusual perhaps position of being a female boss worried about protecting my my male staff from discrimination.
I mean, I would love to, like, I wonder if there's a way to collect the data and to do some kind of research with why training, while especially our kind of training, right, the kind of the positive
Mhm.
reinforcement movement, using that kind of scientific method, is dominated more by women, which
Well, what
is,
was it like? So
yeah.
I'm curious about your studies at John Jay. How long did you do that, and what was it like?
So I went to John Jay at night. So I was also working for George during the day. I would work Monday through Friday. And I got to the point where he actually moved to Wisconsin, and I was managing his business for him. So I was running it for him. We hired someone else who I became really, really close with. And yeah, I would go to school at night. I would only take like one class, maybe two classes per semester. I got the equivalence of like an associate's, like that many credits.
And was
Mhm.
it, were you working with dogs or not?
At John Jay? Oh, no. So John Jay, I was just getting my criminal justice degree, so I could have like more promotional opportunities, and just still having that mentality of just get a degree. You could do something else, but just get a degree. This way you have it.
So
Um,
what is the progression then? If you have that degree, then do you go to school to become a cop? And
So
then
with the NYPD, so I don't know how it is now, but with the NYPD, you have to have one either 4 years military service, right? And I was actually, before going back to school to John Jay, I was trying to get into the Air Force so I can do this, um, and yeah, you either need military service, or you need like 60 credits or something like that.
yeah, you
To
need like basically like an associate's degree.
Yeah, just like the equivalent. Like, you can still, you don't have to have your degree to be a cop, but you have to have some kind of schooling in order to
Mhm.
do that. So there is definitely a requirement. But I wanted to just get my degree, just to have it.
Mhm.
With the NYPD, and this is what kind of deterred me away from being a canine cop, because once you're a canine cop, you're pretty much stuck there, because they want you, the dog, your partner that you're gonna get, right. You're gonna be working with that partner for a really long time. You're gonna be working with that canine for a really long time. They want someone to be consistent, to know what
Mhm.
they're doing with the canine, and to have like some really great experience. So once you get there, you're pretty much staying there. So no promotional opportunities in terms of like just higher ranks. Of course, I'll still get like pay raises throughout the
Well,
year.
did
But
you
you're
did you like meet people who were canine cops? Like have
No,
fun? No.
no, not really. I mean, I would just go to school with just like regular 18, 19-year olds, maybe even
Mhm.
older, because I was going to school at night.
Mhm.
But no, I didn't. The only person that I met was like a corrections officer, and he like came to class one day.
Mhm.
But my schooling wasn't nearly as like hands on as like, oh, I'm gonna go NYPD, take a tour, or like get other experience from canine officers. This is all just like research, really diving in, getting
Mhm.
people's accounts, and just the more I did that, the more I was like, yeah, nope, don't want to do that.
Huh. Okay.
And some of the methods, like George, my the
Your
person I keep
mentor. Yeah.
referencing, yeah, one of my
Mhm.
mentors, he was like, yeah, you're not gonna like the training that you're gonna do with the dogs.
Oh, really?
I'm like, he was like, oh yeah, he showed me videos of because they have to get the dog into a highly aroused state just to get them to either bite or something like that. Like I remember that's what he was kind of telling me. And yeah, he was like, you're not gonna like the methods that they would use to do that.
Hmm.
I'm like, fair enough.
I'm always so curious when I see the dogs at like the airports and
Yeah.
and whatever. I always think like, what would you need to do? Not that have ever smuggled drugs or would want to smuggle drugs. But I think like I bet like a dog trainer would have a better time smuggling drugs.
Oh, definitely. Oh, absolutely. With the beyond a doubt, we're like, all right, how do we get more smells on this items to ward off the scents, right? Oh, totally.
Or just like pack the drugs in like chopped meat.
Yeah, there you go. Chopped meat, or like like take a sock, rub your dog on the sock so it smells like a dog. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, us dog trainers, I'm sure we could come up with some ways. that may be like a product idea.
Oh, yeah, it's just like an HBO show waiting to happen.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought it would be fun to have a class that like we've done some scent work classes. I'd love to do more, but I thought it would be fun at some point to have a class that's like teach your dog to find your weed.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great. That's awesome.
Like both a party trick and kind of useful.
Yeah, so yeah, use it. Yeah, use your dog's nose. Yeah, sure. Oh my gosh.
Or even just like teach your dog to find keys or something like that.
Yeah. Oh sure. Yeah, it's so funny talking about sense of smell. Like one of the things that's always baffles me, and a lot of the people that puppy parents that come to the school, they're like, it's so interesting. I toss a treat. And, they're supposed to have a good sense of smell. It just takes them forever to find it. And I'm like, yeah, it's always funny to see dogs, especially puppies, just not know really how to or use their nose very well or, stuff like that. And I always tell them, I'm like, think of it kind of like a spidey sense, right? You have all of this information because they have, of smells, different smells constantly all the time. So I'm not sure what's the time difference of how many more they have than us, but they, definitely have more than double the amount of sensors that we have in our nose.
Well, I always think it's funny when people are like, "Oh, he smells my dog on me," and I'm like, maybe, or maybe he smells the cologne of that guy that you hooked up with 3 weeks ago.
Or like your lunch.
Yeah, or maybe he smells the mustard that you had in your sandwich.
Yeah,
to go Wednesday.
And I've always said this, like if I was to be a stand-up comedian, if I was gonna have like do a little comedy show, I would always open with this. I'd be like, hey, how's it going, everyone? I really love dogs. I love dogs. Always loved working with them. Dogs have the best sense of smell in the world. They can probably smell what you had for lunch a few hours ago, but they have to be this close to poop. And I would like to take my hand, put it right close to me. This close to poop to smell it. They just have to do it. They have to almost stick it down their throat in order to smell it. It's just absolutely boggles my mind.
Or when people think like their dog, peed on the bed to spite them or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
he's
no,
doing
dogs,
it to get back at me. I'm like, yeah, they don't do that.
Dogs love their pee.
Yeah, it's like they love it. They're like, ooh, I'm gonna bless my parent with some pee.
I offer you a gift.
Yeah, there you go. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Sonic used to do that when I first got her. She would do this like submissive pee when we would come home and she was on the bed. We're like, hey Sonic, and she would roll over, we'd pet her, and then boom, she'd pee on the bed. We're like, no. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Dogs.
Oh, dogs. What we do for them.
Well, Adam, it's been really fun to talk to you.
Yes, thank you for having me on. This is great.
It's fun to do these interviews, if only to like just get a reason to like talk to someone
definitely
I work with for an hour.
Yeah, sure.
Without it being like a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, right. It's like, all right, we'll talk about this.
Great. Well, if someone is looking for you online, I know they can book with you at schoolforthedogs.com/Adam.
Yes, they can.
And you're also doing some classes these days, right? Are you teaching any classes right
now?
So
I'm doing a lot of puppy kindergartens. I have one on Tuesdays, soon to be 2 on Tuesdays, one on Sundays.
Doing them both in person and virtually, right?
So in person, I do virtually, just kind of like when it's needed, or if someone needs me to fill in for them.
But mostly in person.
Yeah, but mostly in person. And then I'm also doing, I if anyone is really interested in this class, I am teaching parkour.
Oh,
It is a great class. Yeah, I started off shadowing Annie, and I absolutely I shadowed you when I first was hired. I was like just trying to fill my schedule with things, and I'm like, ooh, parkour. I want to maybe potentially teach that. So I definitely.
How do you describe our parkour to people?
So parkour, right? Play on words of parkour, but for dogs, right? So what we do, the main benefit of this class is to create obstacle courses for your dog, not only inside, but of course outside as well. It is a great class to be able to engage your dog's mind and body, specifically their core, using their body in different ways that they're not really accustomed to, and really having that satisfy exercise and satisfy some kind of enrichment that your dog may be craving, right? And of course, when COVID hit, this was the class to teach, because I was able to say, oh yeah, no, put that plunger over here, or put this chair over here, right? And really give people the tips and tricks necessary in order to engage their dogs when they can't go to the dog park, or maybe it's too cold, or maybe they're stuck inside for too long and their dog is about to rip off the paint in their walls, right? It definitely happens.
Well, what's so cool about it, I think, is that like it's all stuff that you can do with like stuff in your apartment.
Exactly. At-home stuff that's just you can lying around that you could just use to get your dog
beer cans and broomsticks. And
and like plunges. Go jump over a plunger, jump inside of a box. Oh yeah, it's great. And one of the things we always love to teach is we start to build the foundation for like a handstand. So we'll place something behind the dog and start to shape them for slowly backing up, lifting up their paws. Oh yeah, it's great. Great class. I love teaching it. We are the first rotation is that we brought back since COVID, when we shut down in COVID. Just came back. Highly recommend it to anyone's dog that loves to move around, that's really motivated, or anyone that just wants to really engage their dog in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, it really gives you a lot of ideas. Actually, maybe I should get Jason, my husband, to take it, because I think he like wouldn't think about training Poppy on his own, but I think when he has like the structure of a class, he really like enjoys spending that time with her and seeing.
Sure.
So, anyway, Adam, such a pleasure.
Yes.
If you are interested in working with Adam, he has a puppy kindergarten 6-week class coming up starting March 10th, another one on April 6th. You can book a private lesson with him at schoolforthedogs.com/Adam. And he is also on Instagram at good_doggo26. Thanks so much for listening. You can support School for the Dogs podcast by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, telling your friends, and shopping in our online store. Learn more about School for the Dogs and sign up for lots of free training resources on our website, schoolforthedogs.com.